Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, and Napoleon Bonaparte, four of history's most famous conquerors. Imagine a man who cried because conquering 2 million square miles wasn't enough for him. Alexander the Great cared about one thing only: conquering the world. He threw his army into battles without fear, as though he were invincible. Why wouldn't he think that? For 10 years, victory after victory followed him. But while Alexander was full of ambition, his soldiers were exhausted. They wanted to go home and enjoy the wealth they had earned. Alexander, however, wasn't interested in riches or ruling, just in conquering. Things started to go wrong for him when he reached India. Facing King Porus, Alexander fought his hardest battle. He lost many men, was injured, and even lost his horse. Yet he pushed his men forward, only to find a massive Indian army waiting for them across the river. His tired soldiers begged him to stop and return home. Finally, Alexander had no choice but to listen. This marked the beginning of his downfall. Alexander was known for drinking too much, and one night he drank so heavily that he became very ill. While he lay dying, his generals gathered and asked him who should take over his empire. His answer? To the strongest. This led to decades of fighting among his generals, and the empire fell apart before it could fully form. Legend says Alexander's body didn't decompose for 6 days after his death, proving he was divine. However, modern scientists think he wasn't dead at all. He likely fell into a coma due to a neurological condition. It's possible he even heard his men's plans before being buried alive. Next, we have Julius Caesar, a fan of Alexander. Caesar cried after reading about Alexander's achievements, saying, "When he was my age, he had conquered Darius. I've done nothing." Inspired by Alexander, Caesar also became self-centered and obsessed with power. As a skilled general and politician, he gained control of Rome and declared himself dictator for life. He didn't hide his intentions either, famously saying, "If you must break the law, do it to seize power." Many senators feared he wanted to become a king, which would destroy their authority. On March 15, 44 BC, a group of 60 senators killed Caesar during a Senate meeting. They stabbed him 23 times to send a clear message. Among the attackers was Caesar's adopted son and trusted ally, Brutus, the last face Caesar saw. Now to the Middle Ages. While the Crusaders are well known, they were overshadowed by Genghis Khan, the beast of the East. He conquered twice as much land as Alexander and dreamed of uniting the world under his rule. But unlike Alexander or Caesar, Genghis didn't see himself as a god or savior. He openly embraced being a tyrant, saying, "The greatest joy is to crush your enemies, see their cities in ruins, and take their loved ones." Stories about Genghis Khan's death vary. Some say he died of the plague. Others say he was fatally shot or killed by a captive princess. His death remains a mystery because it was kept secret. Genghis ordered his followers to hide his death, as it happened during a critical conquest. Even his funeral procession left destruction in its path. His men killed anyone who saw it to keep the secret. Finally, we have Napoleon Bonaparte. By this time, battles were fought with cannons and guns, not swords and spears. Napoleon mastered the art of war like no other. Though he claimed to defend revolutionary France, his ambitions were far greater. Napoleon saw himself as an artist, saying, "I love power, but I love it as an artist." He treated the battlefield like a canvas, planning every move in detail. His memory and focus were legendary. Once, an officer couldn't find his division, but Napoleon knew exactly where it was, what it was doing, and even the officer's own military record. Napoleon's armies swept through Europe with incredible speed, but as his ambitions grew, so did the bloodshed. Eventually, he faced defeat at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The British captured him but didn't execute him. They feared he'd become a martyr. Instead, they exiled him to a small, decaying house on an island. Napoleon spent the rest of his life in denial, pretending he was still in power. His isolation and loneliness wore him down. On May 5, 1821, he died, whispering his last words, "France, the army, Josephine." He expressed his love for his country, his military career, and his wife. Though these four great conquerors lived in different times and places, they all shared one thing: an unending desire for more. Alexander fell to illness, Caesar to betrayal, Genghis to a hidden fate, and Napoleon to defeat and captivity. Their lives were different, but their hunger for conquest was the same.